Welcome to an overview of the webinar we've carried out on how to engage with the public. My name's Conchita Garcia, and I'm going to be taking you through some of the key points on how to best engage. And I'm going to start with a few different principles you'll want to remember when you're looking to connect with your audience. The first one being it's about them and not you. And this is one of the core principles to marketing. It's simply that you're providing someone with something that they want or need. And this is just as true in fundraising or the charity sector as it is in the commercial world. And so this really does need to be a core principle with any communication you have with those you want to connect with. So making it really specific to what they want to hear, not just what we want to tell them. And I do know that for lots of people, kind of this idea of making everything donor centered makes them feel slightly uncomfortable. But I would say it's definitely an idea worth implementing because it does see the results coming through, and it really does help to take you outside of your organization and start to think about your messaging from someone else's perspective. So some things that you can do. Firstly, carry on talking to your supporters. They're going to expect to hear from you, and they are perfect opportunities to create closer relationships than ever before. So try proactively emailing or calling a donor who's recently given to personally thank them, ask them how they are, and understand why they chose to give to you. You can also show your supporters that you care about them. They're going to appreciate that you've taken the time and thought to do so. So thinking about kind of saw this and thought of you, or we know lockdown is or has been tough, so we're sending you some positive news, or just simply kind of there's something going on in the country that you're working in. There's something in the news that supporters might be concerned about or interested in, then kind of making this a focus of an email. Make sure you build opportunities to understand your supporters and their why, because their story is the most important piece of insight you can gain. You might consider surveys or focus groups or a question on a response form, or maybe Zoom calls with high value supporters. Making sure that each is carefully designed to understand why supporters are giving to your organisation at this moment in time and how your cause relates to their values and beliefs. You can also create opportunities to listen, to support, and create a feedback loop, emphasising that you value input, especially because you can't meet supporters in person right now. Make sure you match supporters' needs and interests with your offer. So ask about them, their needs and interests, and then adjust what you would put out within your communication. But just make sure you're being careful to have a balance about between what people are likely to say and what they actually do or feel. Because people often say things like they don't need to be thanked, but we know within the charity sector that thanking is critical because it meets an often unstated need to feel valued and appreciated. Focus your communications on your impact. Think about whether your internal situation and possibly cuts to services and staff redundancies, whether that's relevant or not to your supporters. So just as an example, if you're in danger of closing or radically reducing your services, that's obviously going to be highly relevant, but you want to have a balance within that so that your supporters are still going to be confident that your organization is going to exist if they do give you a donation at this moment in time. So think about the use of your language if that's something that you're going to be communicating, and help people feel part of something bigger. We saw the power and sense of community that has been created during lockdown. So in your own communications, you can consider how often you put across that idea of you and us together rather than saying we or the equivalent, such as your organization's name. So kind of really building your supporters or the public into what you're looking to achieve. And here's just an example from an organization called Copperfill, who I think are a really strong example of making things donor centric and thinking about what do our donors want to receive. So this is what would pop up on their website during the first lockdown last year. So rather than talking about kind of sign up to our mailing list so we can tell you about our news, they span it on its head and had that core focus on wanting to support their community, knowing that lockdown was going to be tough, and so they were going to provide them with some positivity, some fun news that would be of interest to their audience. Another principle to consider is just that your mindset within the organization will make a difference. So firstly, think about your comm schedule. Does it need refreshing? Remember, the public or your supporters are partners in your mission, and when the work or of fulfilling your mission is under threat, they are going to be kind of your core resource to go to. And fundraising isn't just about persuading people to give to your organization. It's about inspiring people to want to make a difference to the world and the need your community is facing by giving to your cause and feeling great about it. And try to find out how satisfied your supporters are. So read those communications that you're sending out, but also anything that you're getting back in from your supporters, and the different groups of supporters as well. Think about whether you're being flexible to your different audience's needs, so you're not just trying to fit their square fundraising peg into your pivoted round hole. And that means you need to have an eye on your analytics and keep an kind of monitoring how your communications are being received and whether they're getting that desired result for your investment into your communications program. The third principle to consider is just not assuming you're providing a great experience when people connect with you. Donors may be giving despite rather than because of what you do. With an exceptional experience, they will do so much more. So keep adapting your communication plans to stay relevant and fresh. You may have an opportunity at this time to launch an emergency appeal, especially if you have not done so already. So consider adding in more report backs, but communicate as often as you have something relevant to say. And remember, you're probably just one of your supporters' charities, so make sure what you have to say is distinctive and adds value for them. Build on the behaviours people valued in lockdown, so that idea of being kind, taking care of each other, looking out for those in need of support, etc. And then carry out a review of the user experience through your website and your communications. Are you making it as easy as possible for people to support you? So for example, do you have the relevant packs and information on your website? Do you have direct links for donations? And kind of do the links that you do have work? So make sure you do a semi-regular check that everything on your website is providing a smooth process for those who are interested in supporting you. And that leads me on to the next principle, which is evaluating and monitoring everything. Because if you don't know what works for you and your audience, then it's going to be really difficult to make improvements when they're needed and to maximize your relationship building. So this does mean that you need to know what you want to achieve before you start a particular campaign or activity. And that's going to mean that you have to have some smart targets in place so that you can measure against them and your success. And just some general things to consider are going to be your clicks and your open rates. So how many people are opening your emails and how many people are clicking on your links or your call to action buttons to respond to the actions you want someone to take? If both are really low, then you know that there's a problem. So you have low open rates, you need to look at your subject line and your preview text and whether you're using sender name and personalization in your communications. If your click rate is low, then you need to look at your calls to action. So are they compelling enough? Are they in easy line of sight? Do you have too many so that you kind of people feel paralysis and don't know what to choose? Think also about your conversions and your actions. So for an example, the number of bookings you get or the number of pack downloads you receive or the number of donations that are made when you send out an appeal. Income is obviously going to be one of the key things that you'll also want to look at linked to your campaigns and your activities. And it's also worth having a view on your unsubscribes and your complaints. So this will help to tell you if your emails are being well received or not. But just remember that you're always going to receive some unsubscribe rates for your email campaigns. Because of the nature of email and how busy everybody's inbox is and the likelihood that at some point or another, some of your supporters are going to be having a bit of an email clear out. So I'd say anything around the 1% of unsubscribes is absolutely normal. It's if you're getting above this that you might want to start to consider is there something going on with your emails? And just this is so important because gathering data means that you are able to establish what success looks like for you. And just point number 5, really important, depending on what your activity is that you invest in fundraising, communication, and advocacy. Because this principle recognizes the importance of you. You are the bridge between your supporters and the difference your organization makes. So an inspired and enthusiastic you as the fundraiser within your organization is just what is needed right now. And the better you as fundraisers are feeling, the better experience you will deliver for your supporters. We know that this can be very difficult in small charities when you are the sole fundraiser. So if you have been impacted negatively from lockdown or the recent cuts in aid funding, now is the time to increase investment in fundraising. Cutting back will impact the money coming in, and investing in fundraising isn't just about making sure you're spending more, but thinking about sharply prioritizing to invest smarter. Where and how you can do that, but especially in the area of supporter experience to keep people engaged with your activity and not putting your organization a step back in your engagement and your fundraising. So just generally thinking about what are supporters looking for when they engage with charities. So the most important factor in encouraging people to engage is clarity over how their donations are being spent. So making sure you're being transparent around this is really important. And you also need to know your impact. And that means having monitoring and evaluation systems in place and links within your in-country partners to get the information you need in the time frame that you need it. And I know from experience it can be really hard or difficult enough doing that when your service delivery team are in the same room as you, let alone across the country or in another organisation or country as a whole. So if there are barriers in place to collecting data, make sure that this is something that is addressed so that it doesn't stop you from engaging with your audience in the most effective way. And again, from experience, don't fall into the trap of collecting data and not having the time to do anything with it, or using it only once in an impact or funder report. So consider how you can use this information throughout the year so you have a consistent narrative talking about the change and impact your services help to deliver. Also worth, I think, thinking about the importance of language and ethical use of images and stories when you're engaging with the public. So making sure that you're keeping copy ethical. Avoid positioning the organisation or the donor as the hero who rescues the victim. At its worst, we see this in white saviorism, and Labour MP David Lammy and Stacey Dooley from Comic Relief released a statement in 2020 stating that they would no longer do this. Now the organisation says it will instead hire local filmmakers and photographers to create promotional videos for a more authentic perspective. And funnily enough, small charities such as Kids Club Kampala have been taking this approach for many years. Make sure you're giving active agency to those that you are showing or depicting, not only in images but in words. Don't make people passive recipients of the aid that you are giving them or the support that you're providing them with. Make sure that you are being honest and open about the engagement that those individuals are having too. You can also challenge myths about your issue and avoid reinforcing stereotypes. Offering a surprising perspective is a good way to get people's attention. And there is no better tool for doing so than human stories. So choose an unlikely protagonist or find a new empowering angle for an old issue. Tell that unexpected story. And make sure you inform people how their story will be used and why, and give them an opportunity to ask questions. Make sure you have explained the purpose, where it will be used, and answer any questions they might have before taking a photo, filming, or recording. And make sure, if that language is an issue, that you are using a translator. And this will help you to capture people's permission, which is also key as well. If they are children, you should seek permission from their legal guardian. And make sure you anonymize and create composite case studies. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a composite case study, but you just need to make sure that this is made clear that this is what it is. And the Code of Fundraising Practice has some good guidance on doing so. And lastly, ask for feedback. How do people feel about how their stories have been represented? Make sure you listen to this feedback and use it to inform how you present their stories. So thinking specifically about using images and film. So absolutely nobody likes to feel helpless, incapable or desperate, and they certainly don't want to be portrayed in that way in charities reports or fundraising campaigns. And charities, no matter what the size, have a responsibility to root out damaging stereotypes that are opposite to our missions or that contribute to white savior syndrome. So think about using photos that flatter. The best way you can show respect for the people in your photos is to show them at their best. Even if they're in a challenging situation, for example, a refugee camp or hospital, they can still be depicted in a way that shows their strengths, resilience, personality, character, and humanity. Flattering photos of people will attract more attention and connect better with your donors. Before posting a photo, always ask yourself, would I want to be portrayed this way? If you or someone you love were the subject of this photo, would you be comfortable with it being published? And show that change. Visions of long-term impact and improvement over time can make a difference for a public audience rather than just being exposed to urgent need asks that show repetitive desperation, which potentially leads to emotional disconnection. Finding simple, emotive human stories to drive engagement with systematic issues to show that things really are changing can be really very powerful. Choose photos that create emotional connections. Fundraising lends itself to fostering human connection, so let your passion for your cause show through your photos. If your images capture your excitement about your project, then your donors are going to be excited about it too. This idea of showing context. So a good, compelling photo shouldn't need an explanation. When a photo is strong, the audience will understand and appreciate it without a caption. Photos that show what is happening in the background, what activity the people are participating in, or where it has taken will make more of an impact on your donors than photos of just faces with a plain background. Your photos are an absolute window into your work, and donors want to see the work you do. Give them a glimpse into your world with photos that capture the people you help in the situations in which you help them. And avoid filters and too much editing. An over-edited photo can detract from its story and distort the context that allows your donors to connect with it. Your photo should aim to show donors what your project is really like, and they will want to see real people in real situations. If your photos are too heavily edited, they will seem less professional, less relatable, and less real. So minor editing to enhance color or add contrast is okay. However, it's best to refrain from altering the image so it looks drastically different than the original picture. And lastly, something definitely worth considering when engaging with your public, whether it's new supporters or potential new supporters, is how do you foster those strong relationships and build those relationships from the outset? So there are lots of different things that you can do. And just some of the things that you might want to consider include, firstly, knowing and segmenting your audiences. So look first for your drivers of support and use these for your segmentation before using more general factors such as age or geography. So for example, how have they engaged or supported in the past, or potentially what are their interests, whether that's project related or activity related. You can then start to think about what actions you should be offering your supporters based on their past behavior. And the big driver needs to be for a personalized relationship. Millennials are digital natives, so they're going to put a premium on speed, ease, efficiency, and experience in their transactions. And this will be the same for expectations of charity. So make sure you're making it as easy as possible for them to engage. Think about building a successful supporter journey program. So to inspire and mobilize people, this includes mapping out all the touch points and specific contact points that you could have with a supporter so that you can understand how best to reach them. And knowing your audience and thinking about how you will communicate with them and making sure you creatively say thank you as a starting point. Also, start small and take a test and learn approach. So for example, Start with your supporters, your current supporters, and then start to move on to a new audience once you know what works best, rather than trying to change and adapt everything at once. Really helpful to create a central library of content. So this will help you move away from simply always asking your audience to do something for you, but you can then have some moments when you surprise and you delight with content to create more engaging and meaningful supporter experiences. Think about how you can build trust by showing your roots and your reach. Small charities and the way they were founded often have really powerful stories. So use these to your advantage. And also keep people engaged by showing the differences and the impact that you make, and show this in different ways. And something to consider if you kind of don't have this approach already is to make sure you're collecting emails wherever and whenever you can. This is the key way you're going to bring people closer to your organization and your cause, and to hopefully move people from one-off transactional supporters to committed givers. There's recent research from Local Giving found that a third of all donations were due to email. So although social media and community events are a great way to engage and share information about your organization, the way that you're going to keep people engaged is via email communication. And lastly, say thank you. So build stewardship into your engagement program and your communication plan. So it's not something that you only do if you have the time, but a really true and essential part of your communication. As researchers found, those thanked in 48 hours are 400% more likely to donate again in the future. So it's well worth the effort of drafting some thank you emails and activities and building it into your plans. So I really hope you found this kind of overview on engaging with the public useful. And please do stay in touch with us. We've got our contact details there, and we hopefully will see you at one of our events or activities soon. Thank you.